Mr. Mark Herbert from Warp Films.
Hey up, Phil.
Welcome, mate.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good.
We were meant to have it on last week, but the weather,
Yeah.
the snow.
2 foot of snow in Sheffield.
2 foot of snow in Sheffield, yeah.
Proper snow.
He's just shown me a picture of a snow angel that he made. Naked. No, it wasn't naked. It was
Pants on.
pants on, yeah. So welcome, mate. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it, mate.
No
You
problem.
know, I just think this is going to be, helpful for listeners that are sort of, wanting to get into the industry, if they want to sort of produce or, start out in the industry, and, people who think that they have to sort of go through the conventional way, like going to film school or whatever, which is, handy, and people do that, but it's not the only way of doing it. You know what I mean? It's there's no rules, right?
No.
There's
not
no
at all.
rules in this business. So yeah, I mean, I think for my first question to you is like, when did you first think, okay, this is the industry I want to get into? Like, I want to be in the film and TV world.
I was well into my 20s. I was in my early 20s, actually.
Yeah.
So
So
when
like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So basically I left sixth form, went to comprehensive school, did sixth form,
Yeah.
did photography.
Yeah.
I had a really weird mix. I did photography, English, lit, and maths.
Right.
Because I had no idea. I did all right at O-levels and loved photography, loved art. And this was a time when people were like, you need to get more. Engineering's where you need to go. You're good at maths, you need to do this kind of thing. But I really had this creative side. So I wanted to keep the English and the photography and art A-level.
Yeah.
Came out of that, the photography was what I loved the most. I had a brilliant art teacher who said, Mark, stick to photography. You're not very good at painting, but you've got a good eye.
Yeah.
It was great advice.
Yeah.
And but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So left sixth form at 18 and I went on a kibbutz. I went to Israel
Oh, right.
in 1989 and travelled for a year.
Wow.
Because at the time I'd got in to do photography. I thought I wanted to be a photojournalist,
Yeah.
to be honest. That was what I loved. And I went to Israel with my black and white stills camera, took loads, because it was like, I went to the West Bank and was taking photographs of. So rather than when I went to Bethlehem, I wasn't worried about Jesus's manger. I was like just taking the things about the politics in
Right.
that time.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then second year, and I didn't have much money, and obviously going to university then, there were grants, you didn't have to pay like you did now, but I didn't have any money, so I decided to work for a second year. So I didn't go to uni. So I sort of basically did travelling and worked as a gardener and a builder from 19 to 20. And then applied to do photography at Nottingham, Manchester, Sheffield. I'd grown up in South Yorkshire, but I'd moved to near Manchester then because my dad changed jobs when I was a teenager.
Right.
And so basically I went to Sheffield. I was going to do photography with this kind of history of art, and at the same time they did a film degree. And I went to Sheffield, looked around this sort of lane. It was a cool art college. They had a Steenbeck, they had Bolex cameras, they had, and I was just like, what's this course? And they said, there's only 10 people on this film studies course.
Yeah.
You can still do your photography, you can do journalism. It was like so I said, can I change courses? Would that be all right? And the reason I went to Sheffield, by the way, not Nottingham, was I was a Wednesday fan. We were doing quite well then.
Yeah.
And I got family from there. I loved, So I kind of went, and Anita, my wife, she got into being a nurse. She was studying nursing in Sheffield. So it kind of made sense for us to go to Sheffield. And I did this film really by accident, did a film degree. But it was theory. It wasn't practical. There was a bit of practical then. And over that 3 years, I never seen a subtitle film until I went to, and got Bicycle Thieves, the Italian neo-realist, all these like Battleship Potemkin and all these films that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
My diet of film was like Jaws and great films.
Yeah.
Going to the ABC in Doncaster on a Saturday morning, and I just fell in love. I just fell in love with film.
Yeah.
No idea. Making a film, I loved the Steenbeck, the old editing.
Yeah.
I loved, we used to be able to borrow a Bolex camera.
Yeah.
For the weekend for nothing, get some 16 and just go and run around and be crazy, make documentaries,
Right,
3-minute docs,
Yeah.
and cut it on a Steenbeck.
Yeah.
The old splice.
Yeah.
And it just gave me this love of film. And then coming out of uni, and I think I'd give this advice to anybody now, and I do talks at back at Sheffield, and I also do talks at a few colleges. It's like when you're coming out, when you're first starting off, if you look at a film credits or a TV credits, there's about 80 to 150 jobs, depending on the size of the production. Yeah. Don't pigeonhole yourself at the start of your career to go in for one of the I'm going to be a producer, or I'm going to be a director, or I'm going to be a writer. I mean, that ambition should be there, but get a foot in the door. So I just sort of was like, right, I'm going to work as a runner, like a lot of people do, work as a runner. So yeah, I just sort of like, so I know that's what, so slowly, almost like over that course of 5 years of growing up, going from teenager to adult and just growing up and not being too sensible, but just sort of thinking, oh, right, I quite like this, and I'm going to have a stab. But my path into it was a runner, pop videos. I then went to work in Liverpool on the Richard and Judy this morning
really?
For a couple of weeks.
Fred the Weatherman.
Yeah.
Remember it well.
I did a bit of everything, and then because I did photography and I was still a good photographer, this work was bitty. I worked as I was volunteering at this thing called the Yorkshire Film Commission, which is now Screen Yorkshire. And at that time, they were building up a location database. And the location database was just going around locations and taking photographs, putting them up to attract people to come and shoot their films in Yorkshire. And Yorkshire's great because, it's from Sheffield, it's got the industry, it's got steelworks, it's got canals, but it's also got your beauty up in the peaks in North Yorkshire. So it was a great thing to do as a volunteer. And then they gave me a part-time job. And, so I was getting paid. So I was doing less running. And then this is how random your opportunities need to be, and how you need to seize an opportunity when they come, is there was this film called Brassed Off that they were looking for locations, Mark Herbert and Steve Abbott, the producer. And they came into the office. There was only me in there, and started talking to me, this guy, and he said, I want to do this film. It's about Grimethorpe Colliery Band. He said, will you show us around? So I said, yeah, jump in the car, show them some photographs. Let's go to Grimethorpe. And I grew up in Conisborough, which is a mining town, about 3 mining towns along from Grimethorpe. So I knew, I grew up there, so I knew Doncaster, Barnsley, all these areas. And I was into locations. And I took them around. They, really good. And then they decided to film there. And Mark Herbert, the director, said, do you want to come and work on it?
Oh, wow.
We've got a location manager, but what about being assistant location manager? Because frankly, the location manager is a bit posh. He's from the home counties. He's done like Bond and things like that. And he'll get eaten alive in Barnsley. And he did.
Yeah.
So I just was there, one, because he thought I got a good eye, but actually predominantly because I could walk onto an estate and not be condescending or patronising and knew, So I did Brassed Off, and I didn't actually know really what a location manager was or did. So 6 months before, I had no idea I wanted to be a location manager. I was thinking I'll do camera, I'll do a bit of that. And then I fell into this job because of an opportunity, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
And then so how did it go from there to then, setting up Warp? I mean, did you have like, obviously going back, you're saying that you're doing this degree and you were in university and stuff, but what were your parents thinking when you said you want to do this film course?
I mean, to be fair, they were supportive,
right?
Because they knew I was really into. I had the dark. I got rid of my built-in wardrobe and put a dark room in it when I was a student. Yeah, and just like they knew I was into reading and music.
Knew you're creative.
Creative, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad did math. My dad was, he was very, practical, technical, as a person, but they were really supportive. But I still, even up until they, my grandparents, up until they passed away, like they would still go, when are you going to get a proper job? Yeah. Mark.
Yeah.
They were great, but they didn't quite know.
Yeah.
Is that a real job? What you get? Do you drive around looking at things? When I was a location manager.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember when I was thinking about it on the way here. I remember once with my granddad when I was working on Brassed Off, and I was like, "Yeah, I've got this job. They pay me And back then it was about 600 quid a week,
Yeah.
which back then was crazy. I'd only ever earned
Yeah.
like £5 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was on 600 quid a week. And I remember saying to my granddad, I said, yeah, and I get breakfast. And I get my lunch, and I get these things called per diems. And he's
Yeah.
like, "What's a per diem?" I said, "Well, I think it's like they say it's for laundry, but I think it's for drinking." Because I just didn't know,
that.
and he was like, "Oh God, that's amazing!" You know, it was like,
yeah.
"Wow, what,
So glamorous.
you don't have to take your own sandwiches." No, I get.
Oh, I love that.
It was like just because
Yeah,
he's a miner,
It's unheard of. Yeah,
Yorkshire miner, you know.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful, and so yeah, I guess. Yeah, they were really supportive. Mum and Dad were dead supportive, really.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'll go into the producing in a bit. My wife was a nurse,
Yeah.
you know, so we had that. It wasn't a lot of money, but we did have stable income coming in. She worked at the hospital in Sheffield, Northern General, then the Hallamshire.
Yeah.
So we did have that, you know. So, you know, I could go for a bit of time
Yeah.
between jobs, because back then as a freelancer, you needed to. But I think... And back then it was different, you know. A lot of crew were more London based.
Yeah, of course.
I had a mate who lived in London, cameraman, worked on Brastoff, who let me use his address, so it made it feel like I was a Londoner.
Oh,
I had an
right.
0207 number.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
And I guess the sort of and then really got on with Mark Herman. Loved, you know, Brastoff went well. I went back to the Yorkshire Film Commission.
Went back working there.
Yeah, went back working there.
Yeah.
Because I think 6 weeks prep, 6 weeks shoot.
Yeah.
And then Mark's second film was Little Voice.
Right.
And he came back and went, "Will you be the location manager on this one, not the assistant location manager?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Do you know Scarborough?" "Yeah, I've been on holiday there loads." My uncle's got a pub up there. Yeah, I know it very well.
Yeah.
And that was that. And I think on that, being the location manager, worked with a great producer called Liz Carlson, Number 9 Films.
Yeah.
And Mark Herman again, had a great relationship with Mark, and the designer, who, you know, I just realised, it's weird now, location manager is a really interesting job. You're creative.
Yeah.
You find your locations. And back then, a location can save a lot of money on a low-budget film. You know,
Of course.
you get the right location that doesn't need a lot of, but you have to be a little bit creative. And back then it was boards, no digital, there's no Google Maps. You just have to get in your car.
Of course, yeah.
And drive somewhere.
Yeah.
And take photographs, mount them on a board, and then go and see the director at his house and
Show him the board. Wow.
But what I also loved about the location managing was getting on with people. So then talking to somebody, whether it was a pub owner or a cafe owner or a house owner or a British Rail, whatever it was, you had to talk to them about negotiating. So you got used to negotiating. You got used to dealing with... And then also you're the first and last on set.
Of course, yeah.
So you got to see how really the makings of something. You got to know the sparks, you got to know because they were parking up first.
Yeah.
You'd be dealing with... You got to know the actors, because you might be finding them a green room. So over the course, I did a few films, did some bit in Manchester... became very close to Pete Postlethwaite. He was a bit of a mentor to me.
Oh,
actually.
yeah. Wow.
Met him on Brastoff, got on really well with him because I introduced him to some people, because I would grow up in a mining town, so I took him to the miners' welfare.
Amazing.
When he was doing that, and I did this thing called Among Giants that Pete was in, a Sheffield thing, and then I did Butterfly Collectors, which was shot in Manchester.
Yeah.
With Pete, and he was great, and it was just this. Location managers was a really interesting way of really accelerated. Even though I'd done a film degree, I really didn't know about making a film.
That's the thing. I hear that a lot. You know what I mean? Because I didn't go to film school myself, so I came up the acting route. But I do hear that a lot. I mean, obviously it's great film school. I don't want to diss film schools, but they teach you a certain amount of. They teach you the basics. Let's say. Yeah. But I always say you've got to be in it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You've got to be, because it's an ever-changing industry as well. And you've got to be sort of in the mix to be able to understand it properly.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 week on a set is 3 years.
Of
like I say, mine was film theatre, like appreciating film. I think that's doing a bit of editing on the Steinbeck was a really good thing about how things are put together, because it's quite physical.
Yeah.
It's a physical process rather than a like editing on Final Cut now.
Digital, yeah.
It's quite physical, and you've got to be quite. But I'd say, and then the location managing was interesting. What I really, so there's that was a good grounding, and then probably the best thing about it was, and you know this as a director, I might be working on something for a couple of months. You pick up a director who most of the time either lived in London or Dublin or wherever they were from. You pick him up at Leeds Station or wherever, and you take him on a recce for 3 days.
Yeah.
And in between showing them locations, you're like a taxi driver.
Yeah.
And you become, they might be with the producer, or they might be talking to the producer, or might be talking to an investor or whatever. And it was just ears then.
Yeah.
So those hours between locations, oh my God, what a grounding for listening. Seeing a good producer and also seeing some not so great producers.
Yeah.
And I saw films that were brilliant that got taken away from almost like the vision taken away, stripped away.
Yeah.
Because I'm driving and you're invisible when you're driving.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And they're on the phone, and I just would listen. I'd just be a sponge listening
Wow.
for years, So I just kind of I just picked up this, almost like, God, why are they doing that? Why are they, because I'd, worked on some bigger films as well.
Yeah.
It was after Full Monty, and there was a couple of times where everybody wanted to find the next Full Monty.
Yeah.
So there was this big influx of American money into films to find the next Full Monty because it took millions.
Of course, yeah.
So you became this studio was on top of this film, and they'd be like throwing. I remember doing this film Blow Dry about hairdressers in Huddersfield with Alan Rickman, and they put Josh Hartnett in it, the American actor with the worst Yorkshire accent I've ever heard. And I remember the directors. I remember some of the conversations that I was thinking, wow, really, almost being forced to put people in so they could have a bigger American audience.
Of course,
but what it did was not make the film very good.
Yeah.
And that was a real good grounding for me to say, right. And then alongside that, while I was doing the show Butterfly Collectors, my wife got pregnant with our first Evie.
Yeah.
24 now.
Wow. Yeah.
99 she was born. And as a location manager, you are away a lot. And so I decided that I was going to try and move into producing. I thought, I'm just going to give this a go.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be away, so I just thought I'm going to set up a production company.
Amazing. Did that come with like fear?
Oh God, yeah. Massive imposter syndrome.
Of course,
and fear and stuff. And it was funny, everybody. I talked about this. I was in Australia a few weeks ago, and talking to a writer, and said, back then everybody who was producing or in production was Simon or Sophie. That's what she was saying. There wasn't many of us who went to a comp. And And I think for location managing, I kind of got this. I tended to get the films that were a bit rough.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to go to Hattersley in Manchester or Salford back then. We did some stuff, and not get run out of town. Really.
Yeah.
I was a bit streetwise.
Yeah.
So I knew, if you come in there going, look how much money we've, look at our jackets and walkie-talkies, you're going to get.
Of course, yeah.
So who you get as security and all that.
Yeah.
So it was really. So when my daughter was born, I just thought I'm going to be a producer. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. And had you stopped location managing then?
So what I did was I'd do the odd commercial to keep a little bit of money coming in.
Of course, yeah.
This is when my wife's was like we lived on my wife's wages. Yeah. Oh, that was the real that meant we could pay the rent. And, when we got a house, but it was only 30 grand back then, which is mad.
Yeah.
Anyway, so little terraced house in Sheffield, and what was interesting was I could also do budgets. I'd learned how to do budgets and schedules, so I would do budgets and schedules for people. And I've met a producer called John Rushton, who'd produced The Royal Family. It was a line producer on The Royal Family. He'd come up through the BBC, and we just sort of set up as a partnership.
Yeah.
This is pre-Warp.
Right.
A little office in Sheffield. And actually what we ended up doing was becoming producers for hire.
Right.
But that's how when I produced Phoenix Nights, that's how that came about. Because I'd worked with Peter, and this is how random stuff is. Peter Kay had worked, he had a part in Butterfly Collectors. He was a park keeper, I seem to remember.
Really?
I remember chatting to him on the back of the bus, and he was making, it was funny. And then also the first thing I did with this John Rushton as producers was this thing with Caroline Aherne. which was a documentary in India with her and Craig Cash, and I was line producer on that. It was Granada, but for the BBC, and we took Caroline Aherne and Craig Cash to Rajasthan.
Wow.
It was to do with curing blindness, because Caroline had cataracts. And Caroline's agent, Phil McIntyre, was Peter Kay's agent. And they were looking for a producer after that Peter Kay thing to do Phoenix Nights. And to be fair, you know, they took a punt on me and John. And because I grew up in working men's clubs, and I think he was frustrated that he didn't want to try and go, this is what, you know, explaining it to someone who didn't understand culture.
Yeah.
But to be fair, it was a real punt, because I was in my early 30s. And I'd not produced before.
Yeah.
You know, and I was suddenly doing a 6-part series. Because, you know, and what was great, you know, but I just knew, and you know, if when Peter, Dave, Neil were explaining character, I was like, yeah, they do exist.
I know them. Yeah.
You know, I was sat with half a shandy at the back of the miners' welfare since the age of 5.
Yeah.
With my granddad Halifax.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was. So I did. We became. Yeah, but we weren't. It wasn't a production company. We were like paid as a producer.
Right.
But then,
so would you both do it together, or would you?
We do it together, yeah, because he was really good. He was much better at budgets.
Right.
And we did a film at the same. We did a film. We helped this Swedish film that was shooting in the UK doing the logistics.
Right.
So we were more logistics, practical. And then Phoenix Nights, we were doing that. So John stayed on set on this film, and I moved to Manchester. I got a flat in Manchester and did Phoenix Nights. We shot we did all the interiors at the Bonded Warehouse. We were talking about this before. Yeah. That's where you first.
Yeah. That's where the Granada Studios tour. Yeah. That's where I first got into it. Like I just remember seeing all that stuff and being like, "This is incredible, it's magic.
Yeah,
I want to do this. What do I want to do?" So,
yeah.
But so that's where you shot Phoenix Night.
So we did Phoenix Night. We did the club interior.
Yeah.
The room, but then the exterior was in Bolton.
Right.
And the function room. But we had the bar and a few of the offices we built at the Bonded Warehouse.
Right, yeah.
And then we shot the other one in Farnsworth, the exterior.
Right.
Did that. Obviously, you know, that became really successful.
Iconic. Yeah.
I knew it. I mean, God, I've never laughed as much on set.
I bet, yeah. I bet it took ages to film.
Oh, yeah, just laughed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But weirdly, and then at the same time, and this goes back to that randomness I think you're trying to get this podcast. So at the same time, I used to play football in Sheffield. Always played 11-a-side Sunday pub football.
Yeah.
And Warp Records, my lad who ran a load of the Warp lads and DJs from Sheffield, we played on a Tuesday night. And then we set up a football team that I kind of ran. Didn't man, you know, like, but did the logistics because I'm an organizer. I'm the one who organises stuff.
Yeah.
And we just had this football team, and used to go and drink in the Washington, this pub in Sheffield, on a Tuesday night. And I lived in this terraced house, and my backyard backed onto, like, you know, I have shared backyards at Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Well, opposite, the backyard was Rob Mitchell, who set up Warp Records.
Right.
He was the founder with Steve Beckett. And they set up this Warp Records. And me and Rob used to go mountain biking together and swimming and football and drinking and festivals and snowboarding and that kind of stuff that you do in your 20s. And at this time, Sheffield was, for electronic music, was amazing. You know, we had great clubs. Warp were in Sheffield. Rob ran Warp. And he had this crazy, they did the Chris Cunningham videos. Do you remember the Come to Daddy?
Yeah.
That blew people away.
Yeah.
They were doing soundtracks. So they had their foot in a little bit they dipped their toes into the film world. The Marvin Callis soundtrack for the Lynn Ramsey film. They did Blue Jam, the Chris Morris, the music for it.
Right.
And so Rob and Steve had this amazing business plan, and I helped Rob because we literally backyards, and I go around play PlayStation with him, doing a bit of FIFA, whatever it was then. 98, 99, whatever.
Yeah.
And he just asked my advice on this business plan. Like, literally, I'm doing this thing. And it was what it was to make short films profitable, like, as in, sell them on DVD.
Right.
Yeah, so to make short films, release them on DVD, because they released Come to Daddy on a VHS and it sold like 30,000 units.
Wow. Chris
Cunningham. And they had loads of talent that drawn to them. And I helped them out. I was looking for my next producing gig, as a producer for hire.
That's after Phoenix Nights?
That's after Phoenix Nights, yeah. So this is like, literally, it's out, but it's not We
Yeah.
finished it, but we've not. It's not been on telly,
Not
so
released,
it hadn't. And then also Peter went back into writing the second series, and then Rob. Rob got diagnosed with cancer and didn't last very long.
Oh my God.
And it was tragic. And then during his really organising his funeral arrangements, and he'd by the way, he'd raised 150 grand from Nesta as a launch pad for this business plan.
Right.
And then me and Steve, I didn't know Steve as well, the other co-founder, but I helped just because I lived in Sheffield and Rob had moved to London. I helped them. Obviously devastated. He got 2 kids and Kev, mate who was the manager of Walk Records, who I used to go snowboarding with, play football with, and Steve, I just helped them arrange Rob's funeral.
Yeah.
It was really busy, just logistics of Rob's funeral, because it was huge. It was like hundreds in Sheffield turned up, and me and Steve got to know each other in this arrangement for it. And it weirdly, sort of just after after the wake, we went back to my house at the kitchen table, had a few drinks, and said, "What am I going to do with this film company?" And we just like, after a few drinks, I said, "Well, I'll do it."
Wow.
Because it was, I think at that time, it was like, I've lost my business partner. What do I do with my record label?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I've just produced this thing. I
This
help you
little
with
show.
the business plan. I love Warp.
Yeah.
I want to stay in Sheffield. Why don't? And they'd raised this 150 grand, and it was to do two short films.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'll do it. But I want to be part. I want to be part of it.
Yeah.
We shook hands.
Oh my God. That's it.
That was it.
Oh my God.
That was great. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. And that's the start of Warp Films.
Well, yeah. To be fair, Robert, and the vision for it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't it wasn't. It had ambition, but it was really to do 2 short films, a Chris Cunningham one, and potentially a Lynn Ramsey or a Chris Morris,
and then see how it goes from there.
and see how it goes. But it was very much about you taking the punk attitude they had, which I loved.
Yeah.
Because they revolutionised electronic music, bedroom artists, and
Yeah.
like this little company above a DJ shop in Sheffield became international.
Yeah.
And I love that ambition that Rob had and vision. And really just took on the nuts and bolts, and I'd be in Sheffield working from my house, and then they had their record office and moved to Kentish Town, so I'd go down there 2 days a week, sleep on Kev's mattress, and I just couldn't afford a hotel.
Yeah.
It was and that was it. Yeah.
And so what was the record company still going as well?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
so it was
they were doing great.
Two separate things, and then
2 separate things. Rob, it was with Steve, and then and then we made this short film, Chris Morris short film, My Wrongs, that Paddy Considine was in. Chris had written this hilarious short. He directed it.
How long was it?
Sorry?
How long was the short?
30-minute length.
13.
13.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big budget for.
Oh yeah.
Did you?
No, that wasn't the full 150.
Oh,
we also
okay,
did a
okay.
Chris Cunningham crazy thing called Rubber Johnny.
Gotcha.
Which was a kind of hybrid sort of. We saw it on DVD. Did great. It was an Aphex kind of.
Right. Yeah.
Mental. Yeah. Rubber Johnny on YouTube.
I'm going to look it up. I'll look it up.
And so it wasn't all that. But weirdly, I raised a bit of money from Film 4.
Right.
Robin Gutch at the time was running Film 4, the lower budget arm of it.
Yeah.
And they invested in this film, and then this film went and won a BAFTA.
Bloody hell.
I worked for a year, just over a year. My fee was $4,000, so I was still relying on my wife's nursing wages. Yeah. But it was a bit of it was a really good calling card. And Chris Morris.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't like stepping in with somebody. He'd already done day to day and that.
Yeah.
And it won a BAFTA, and this is about season opportunities. Just literally the morning after the BAFTAs, I set up a meeting with Film 4. Tessa Ross had taken over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this time, they'd moved back to. It was a different vision for it, and she was like, had a meeting with her. Let us know what you want to do. Really interested back then in regional companies.
Right.
You're not the usual producers we get in here.
Yeah.
I did think of changing my name to Mark with a C at one point.
Mark Herbert.
Yeah, Herbert. So sound more exotic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I still might. Yeah, it was really cool, and and Paddy, and this is how random it is, and this is how plans change. You have an idea. I always love doing business plans. I love doing forward thinking, and still doing them now. But you've got to be able to veer off them.
Of course, yeah.
It's a bit like ski. You got to go off piste now and again.
Yeah.
When something arises.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because certain things weren't in that business plan. Certain things weren't in my career path. I didn't think I was going to sit with Steve just after Rob's funeral and shake hands.
No, of course.
And
nothing's ever been signed still.
No.
Wow, I
no.
love
I
that.
mean, obviously we did.
Yeah.
And then I
But
became
that's
part
it.
of it, and and then we raised a bit more money. I got a first look deal with Film 4 on the back of the BAFTA, and kind of not on the back. It was so weirdly, and this is going to sound bonkers because this leading on to Dead Man's Shoes.
Yeah.
Which is our first feature, my first feature as a producer, and Warp's first feature film, and that came about just on the end. So got to know Paddy Considine.
Yeah.
He was in this Chris Morris short. He was my guest at the BAFTAs. My wife was working, so he was my guest.
Who Paddy
Considine,
was? Yeah.
No, because it's short. Chris didn't go because he's not into that kind of stuff.
Right.
He doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And so me and Paddy went, and Paddy had obviously worked with Shane on Romeo Brass. They grew up together. They were really good mates. Went to college together, were in a band together, and Paddy and Shane were close. And I think Shane had just come off the back of back of this what he would call an experience. He'd worked with different producers on each thing, and he'd not had he felt that his method. He felt that his style and method of how he dealt those early films and shorts were taken away. And Paddy said, you should meet Shane. And I think Paddy then said to Shane, you should meet this dude. He's only up the road. He's grew up on an estate like us,
Yeah.
He's like one of us. I think I'm a couple of years older than them both. So same cultural references.
Yeah.
They were in Burton-on-Trent, Nottingham, and I'd been at sort of South Yorkshire, Sheffield. And he introduced me to Shane, and I met Shane weirdly in London because he was down here, I was down here doing something. So we met, had a drink. This is in February, and in May we were on set on Dead Man's Shoes.
Oh my God. So he'd written that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Wow.
And this goes back to that story I was telling you about being an observer of producers in a car as a location manager. I just was like, the key message, and this Warp Records will get this, is support the artist.
Yeah.
Enable the artist. Not have a house style. So be bespoke and enable the vision, the director, the right whatever, to get their vision onto film. Basically, that was always it. So my approach with Chris Morris and Shane is very different because they're different people. But it was all about enabling. And Shane had I went to see these short films. Weird. I went to see he was living on a farm. I think his house was being done up, and he was living on a farm in Burton-on-Trent with his in-laws. And I went to see him, and he said, "I hear you do short films on DVD with Warp." And I said, "Yeah." And I saw these shorts that him and Paddy had made.
Yeah.
I said, "How long did that take?" "Oh, we just did that. We took a day to shoot and edited it the day after." And I was like, "That's some of the best shorts."
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to write it? He went, "No, we just made it up as we went along."
Oh, right.
I was like, "What, really?" And Paddy was amazing. I mean, literally put some teeth and a wig on and the way he went.
Yeah.
And it's just Shane. Shane's on camera.
He's on camera, yeah.
With a mic on the camera. And he showed me 5, 6, 7 short films. I was like, these are brilliant. So why don't you do this? Why don't you... He said, well, when you get more money and you get other investors, you have cranes and you have art departments and design. I said, you don't have to.
Yeah.
So why don't we do a film like that? Well, who will back it? I was like, well, Tessa's pretty cool.
Oh my God.
She loves you. And then Peter Carlton, who now I'm partner with.
Yeah.
Peter Carlton was running a fund then called EM Media out of Nottingham, who'd funded some of Shane's It was a regional fund.
Right.
He'd set it up, helped set it up, and he knew Shane from back in the day when he was doing small time and 24/7 and Romeo Brass.
Yeah.
All films I adored, by the way. I loved them. I knew Rob loved them.
Yeah.
Before Rob passed, he's like, Shane's great. There
Right.
was a few filmmakers he was like, these are the kind of talent Warp should end up working with.
Yeah.
I wish he could have been with us on that
Yeah,
journey.
yeah.
But anyway, so we just had this crazy idea of doing this film, and it started off as a comedy. So I pitched the comedy. But what was amazing, I've got to take my hat off to 3 people now. Tessa Ross at Film 4, Peter Carlton, worked with now for 10 years after he left Film 4, and Will Clark from Optimum Releasing, that became Studio Canal.
Right.
He said he loves Shane, he loves Paddy. He'll give us a theatrical release.
Wow.
On this comedy called The Skull that I was pitched in March to film in May, because Paddy was going off to do a film in America.
Wow.
And I remember the dates. It's 7th of May we started shooting, and my birthday's on the 6th. So I've weirdly remember the shoot day really clearly.
What year was that?
It's the 21st anniversary coming up. Yeah,
wow.
so 21 years ago. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
I
don't even want
2002.
2002.
So anyway,
2003.
2002 when we shot it. 2003.
Oh, okay.
I think.
When it released.
Yeah. I'll have to check. I can check IMDb.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's all a blur. So, but anyway, we did this thing and we raised. Peter put some money up, first person. Tessa put some money up. Will said he'll release it. I raised 726 grand. Remember it, for a 18-day shoot. And then this is where they did rehearsals. We cast it in Manchester.
Right.
For the gang.
Yeah.
Stuart Wolford and Bell and all that. We actually cast 3 of the gang over at Granada. Wow. And so we were doing this kind of vigilante book, like comic book, superhero, kind of almost Deadpool style, weirdly.
Right.
Very low budget.
Yeah.
And Paddy and Shane were like, that's just not quite well. And then something had happened, they brought some stuff up about the past and everything. And a week and a half before we were about to shoot, Paddy, they went, Mark, I've got to sit down. The comedy you've pitched.
Oh my God.
It's now a bit darker.
Wow.
But they, and I was like, cracky. And, but trusted it, you trusted it. And Steve Beckett, who I was then now business partners with at War, he was like, yeah, go ahead, do it. And brilliantly, Tessa was like, well, it's not the biggest investment, and I know Shane, they'd signed up to it being improvised and workshopped. And they backed it.
Oh my God.
And literally it was like, right, what we're going to do is like, Shane, I don't want people hanging around. I don't want to be waiting for lights and rigs and dollies and da-da-da. I just want to be handheld. I brought Danny Cohen on, brilliant DOP, who'd shot the Chris Morris. This is how incestuous it is. He'd just shot the Chris Morris short that won the BAFTA.
Right.
Barry Ryan, who's sort of like was my literally by my side since the short, first person, and we kicked it off, and said like, what size crew should we have? And it was like, well, how many can fit in the minibus? That's the size of the crew.
Yeah.
Because what we wanted to be able to do is, if something wasn't right, is just get back in the minibus and go
mobile.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You're getting hassle off or whatever.
Yeah.
Found my best
Running
man.
gun.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was so liberating and brilliantly. Paddy was amazing and Shane was amazing. We've got a great crew.
Yeah.
One designer, Adam, who I know you're working with now.
Adam
Tomlinson.
Adam is incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
And one makeup. We said, right, no, we're a costume person, but just let's keep them the same clothes, so we don't have to worry about continuity.
Wow. And there was no script.
There was a structure.
Yeah.
There was a structure.
I know that's how he works. Yeah.
There was a linear. No, we knew where we were going to go one day and where the actors, but he'd guide them like a cat, So that was it.
Oh my God! And literally, it's one of the most iconic films,
British
films out there.
It's the one I get asked about all the time.
And I came to your offices a while ago, and you've got the mask. Is it the mask there?
Well, we've got the
and the full.
We got a mannequin.
It's like going to a museum, going to your office, like a museum of all of my favourite films. It's like it's unbelievable.
We've got the crow we blew up in Four Lions.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Bits of sub. Yeah. No, we like that.
Absolutely
Keep-
unbelievable. And
keep the odd
so
prop.
from there, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got it. It's memorabilia, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
but I mean, so from there, then, so what happened next? Obviously, Dead Man's Shoes was a massive success.
Yeah.
For everyone involved.
Yeah, it was, and we had a great time doing it, and then decided we were going to work together again.
Yeah.
I moved out my bedroom, got some money from Screen Yorkshire,
Yeah.
who gave me just some seed money to employ Barry, because one of the problems when you're doing a single is that somebody needs to be delivering the film so you could get on to do your next film.
Of course.
And so Barry became staff. I converted an old garage sort of shed at the back of my house into an office, and we developed This Is England.
Wow.
And that was next.
And that was something that Shane had had. That's his childhood and all those memories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And how long did that take then from Dead Man's Shoes to then being? And then I presume obviously film 4.
By then I got this first look. Tessa had done a
yeah.
first look. What was really weird is Peter was at this Ian Media, and Tessa got a new, great vision, and she took Peter on. Took Peter on to film 4 to be, and he looked after the sort of not smaller films, but the lower, under Tessa's leadership.
Yeah.
Had his own kind of slate and autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tessa, in Dead Man's Shoes, people loved it, and we were going to do something else. We sort of kicked off a few ideas, and you go and workshop. And Shane's great then of being able to go, it's not quite right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weirdly, we developed we one of the things that we were looking at doing was this crazy sort of twisted, I guess you call it a sort of a nativity, Mary Joseph set about, and but didn't quite get, it wasn't quite working right. But weirdly, put that part that, and it became the Virtues like 15 years later. Yeah. Anyway, totally different. Same principle.
Yeah. I suppose that there's an amazing lesson there for people who are listening, who write scripts or whatever, and they're like, it's not right now, but it can always be brought back off the shelf or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
And
you just never know.
Some of it's timing.
It's time. Yeah.
Some of it's literally, and back then, weirdly, TV wasn't like it is now. Everyone wanted to do
4 channels.
4 channels, budgets were lower, freedom was less. You didn't have much freedom. And, you might have 4 different directors on 4 reps, but now these authored pieces like you're doing and the other people, they weren't around back then.
Yeah.
So we did This Is England, and it was based on Shane's, and I went to Cannes, and weirdly, again, I went to Cannes pitching it with no script, but I had a brilliant pitch deck.
Yeah.
Before we really knew what a pitch deck, which was just cool skinhead photographs. Yeah. And I had an old-fashioned iPad, the click wheel one, with this kick-ass soundtrack that Shane, and I just pitched it with, here's a soundtrack. That's how cool the gang's going to look.
Yeah.
And it's Shane.
Wow. And so Dead Man's Shoes had been out and everything, and so that was another bit of a calling card. That's what we've just done.
Yeah.
This is what we want to do. Yeah. So it's like you've proved yourself, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and we need a bit more money for this. Shows that we don't need a script. We'll give you a script, but famously, Shane wrote a great script. Shane worked on this script, and but it's always a guide. Yeah, he really does. He's really masterful in those workshops and change. And when he's casting, they become
even on the day when you're filming things.
Oh yeah,
the whole
totally.
storylines can change, right?
Well, basically, I handed the script and it was 60 pages long. It said 60 pages long because it said the final act. It said it's gonna go here, but it will change. That was the final act. But this is where you get execs that are good.
Yeah.
Peter,
well, I think
Will Clark, all the people who invested in it.
Yeah.
And weirdly, Dead Man's Shoes has sold well in Australia. So I pieced that together a little bit more, with a bit more. So we got people who loved, and Shane had a clear vision for it. Again, it wasn't a massive amount of money. At one point, we were going to film in Grimsby because the year that I took off before I was at film school, one of the jobs I had, and I had it during summers, was delivering fridge parts in a transit van. And the Grimsby Docks was one of my locations. Yeah. And that place is like a film set. Yeah. So weirdly, at one point, if I could only raise, it was 2.3, but if I could only raise 1, you never know with a film. Yeah. The safety net we'd shoot it like Dead Man's Shoes style in Grimsby Docks. Right. From midday when the dock when it was empty. Wow. So we did that. It was a bit longer, 6-week shoot, longer casting process, and that really exploded. That was like,
Oh yeah,
I mean, Toronto and
yeah.
premiere, and it won the BAFTA.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
And that really helped launch. No, Dead Man's Shoes was like but internationally that kind of did bigger. Won lots of festivals, won awards internationally, and topped off with a BAFTA given to us by Sylvester Stallone, which was like, I still pinch myself when I think back to that night.
Yeah.
We're up against like Bourne Ultimatum and Harry Potter and these big films, and This Is England, wasn't it? It was like, whoa,
It's unbelievable.
crazy. And that was a real that just kind of gave us that, and it did well at the box office here and did great on DVD.
Yeah.
So it just meant that we were suddenly investable as a, for people financing our films, they were getting returns. You know? And once that happens and you go over that million box office, then doors start to open that were not open before.
Yeah. And then what happened? What came next then?
So then, so we carried on producing for Shane, and then weirdly, Barry was full time. I brought Mary Burke in, and this is how.
Were you still in the shed?
Just in the shed for This Is England, but then towards the end, because Libby came on board. Mary was in London at the London office, but we only had, the shed was too small. Basically.
Yeah.
Three desks, and then we moved to near where we are now, back in that, just above the showroom workstation. And low budget films then were quite still, they were weird. They weren't as low as they are now. Yeah, because you were still often shooting on film. Yep. Post production hadn't gone where you could, not everyone was using Final Cut and editing on Max. They were still having to get an offline in Soho and pay Soho. Yeah. I call it strawberry tax. When you go somewhere and they give you sparkling water with their own label bottles and strawberries. I'm like, why? Yeah, that's
that's
you pay a lot of money. So Peter Carlton teamed me up with Robin Gutch, who weirdly had financed the Chris Morris short, but then went freelance as after Film 4, about putting a low budget slate together. So the idea was to aggregate costs like you do on a TV series. So when you go to Panavision or whoever for your stock or your camera or your lighting or wherever, you go, I'm going to do 6 £1 million films as opposed to one. You get better deals. So the idea was, could we make, by raising a fund for 6, would that become does that, and it did give us. So it was like kind of like the film council put it out to tender. I teamed up with Robin because I'd never been a kind of commissioner. I just was a producer. I wanted to make everything. I'd never had that ability to have projects come in, lots of projects, submissions, and see what's the best.
Yeah.
He got commission experience. Peter was at Film 4. They were a partner. Brought in Will Clark and Danny at Optimum, who then become Studio Canal. Yeah, they were great low budget, from a Maurice Perros to Fahrenheit. They did This Is England, and they partnered. And I went to Australia, and at the time, I've never been afraid of genre. Like I said, I grew up. I didn't watch a subtitle film till I was in my 20s. Yeah. I watched Driller Killer and Death Wish and all those kind of. I'd go to the video shop and still went to Blockbusters in Sheffield and look at cool covers. And I loved horror, I loved comedy, and knew that even though Dead Man's Shoes was this beautiful poetic piece, it could be marketed as a kind of revenge thriller on a DVD. So somebody who didn't know Shane, it was like the idea, and This Is England always had a cool poster. I knew it was going to have a cool, iconic poster. Yeah. The skin and the hair and the fashion and the music. And so I always had this weird thing of loving posters, because I used to go to the multiplex by now. My daughter's a bit older, and you used to see people literally queuing up and like, what should we see tonight? Yeah. Not like when, I read reviews but not everyone does. Yeah. It's like, what's the tagline? Well, that was cool. Or walking around Blockbuster and seeing who's hiring these films that are kind of really mad genre films that just become massive. DVD was a massive thing there back then. So we had this idea of putting cool filmmakers, first-time filmmakers, and raising money raised £6 million to do six £1 million features under the Warpex label.
Right.
And that's how we partnered with Robin. Robin became part of the company.
Right.
He kind of was MD of that. And we, and we made that, we actually did it. So we made like things like Buddy and the Bull, Paul King's first film.
Mm-hmm.
Comedy. He went to do Paddington.
Yeah.
We did Tyrannosaur, Paddy's film.
Amazing.
Kill List.
Yeah, amazing.
It's just real cool.
Yeah.
Genre, but not be afraid of genre.
Yeah.
And that was sort of alongside that, Chris had come up with the idea of Four Lions.
Yeah.
Which was the hardest thing I've ever put together.
Really?
Everyone laughed. I mean, yeah. If at that time politically,
Of course, yeah.
I remember pitching it at a festival in.
Was it a script at that?
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that
Brilliant script.
Yeah.
Brilliant script. But comedy about suicide bombers, you get laughed out the room.
Wow, yeah.
Riz wasn't a star then, and
Yeah.
it was funny. I mean, it was funny, but
it's a fantastic film.
But nobody would fund it.
Wow.
Nobody would fund it.
So how did you get it made then?
Crazy. It took. I mean, literally, I think I got laughed out of more meetings than that. Like, I went to Sundance. People would think, "Are you taking the piss?"
Yeah.
No, I pitched it in New York, near the Twin Towers, Ground Zero.
Oh God.
People were like, "No, what are you? This is insensitive. This is this." And
Oh.
we're like, "No, but it'd be funny. It's going to open a debate." It's
Yeah.
Anyway, they didn't get that. But once again, Tessa and Peter
Wow.
at Film 4 went, "Yeah, well, we'll kick it off." So that gave us the cornerstone money.
Yeah.
But we still needed a lot more to do it. But it took ages. We did crowdfunding.
Yeah.
But in the end, we got Will Clark.
Yeah.
We got a company, Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
Wild Bunch.
Of course, yeah.
Mad French company, but do some cool films.
Yeah. They're a sales agent, aren't they?
They came up with an MG and some investors that thought the film had to get made. Some mad investors. They've all made the money back. But
Yeah.
And it went ideally it was going to be 3 mil, but it was under 2 in the end.
Right.
It was hard.
My God. So I think what's I mean, we could literally talk forever about the film, the list of films you've done on TV. But what has been one of the biggest highlights to date for you in your career?
Good question. So one of the things I love is bringing people on as a runner or an intern, and then 10 years later they're producing.
Yeah.
So we've done that with Libby, who's now gone and got her own production company, Duck Soup. Libby does with my assistant.
Yeah.
Mary Burke came in, worked part-time in the London office, went on produced Bunny and the Bull for Warpex, and then went to run the BFI and now producing.
Wow.
I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, even though that's not what people... I'd love seeing people come in, because I'll hire people not on the CV often.
Yeah.
In those roles.
Yeah.
Obviously on crew, you need to know people. But I like to give people a step up.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Because I got a step up back in Brastoff days.
Yeah.
From
Of
Mark
course. Yeah.
Herbert.
Yeah.
And you go that extra mile,
Yeah.
and they're good. And if providing the talented, and it's people skills,
Of course,
I've had people because they worked in they worked at McDonald's when they were a student, and you think if they can assistant manage that, or somebody worked at a pub. I mean, just create or a restaurant, or these.
Yeah.
I'm
It's a
not
stressful
saying
environment.
just
And,
that, boiling point.
Yeah.
It depends on what they're doing, but
Yeah.
so a lot of my job satisfaction comes from having people, both in terms of just freelance crew that have worked on things that you just see them flourish.
Yeah.
First time filmmakers who go and do Bunny and the Bull and then make Paddington, and it's an international massive hit. And Paul's now doing Willy Wonka, and
Yeah.
I and even if it's not with us, I get a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of players. I mean, what we wanted to do now, that was the first, is not just launch, do their second, third, fourth films.
Yeah.
Or the film that they come back after they've been burnt in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's probably the most likely. I love that. I think I said the Sylvester Stallone BAFTA night was pretty special still.
Yeah, of course.
I remember going to the Bradford Film Festival with Four Lions. Daily Mail was kicking off with headlines about how can this film get made.
Right.
And just going to the Bradford with a really mixed audience, and them loving it, laughing, laughter. Because it's weird with film. I didn't realise, we've done comedy, But there's not a lot of, like, when you're watching this thing, you don't know if they loved it or not,
Yeah.
because there's silence, and they come out, and sometimes they would come out of some of the films that we've made. And
Yeah.
like, they're like distraught, they can't talk. Did they
Yeah.
like it? Did they not like it? Whereas
Yeah,
the comedy is amazing because
Instant.
they're laughing
Yeah.
or they're not
yeah.
laughing.
Yeah, yeah, it's one or the other, yeah.
And it was laughter.
Wow.
So seeing that at Bradford and other, seeing that is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so the highlights are kind of quite, some of it's quite small and sporadic.
Yeah. So those are the highs, and I'm sure the highs will still keep coming, obviously. But what are some of the low points?
Low point. I mean, it's an exhausting job sometimes.
Yeah.
You do. I have burnt myself out. Trying to run a company and produce is hard.
Yeah.
I've come to the end. I've collapsed on the escalator at St Pancras after This Is England.
Wow.
Just because we delivered the last ep just before it was on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember
I was
you telling
exhausted.
me that, yeah.
I just can remember coming around. This old granny's giving me a can of Coke.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's been, that you never know we burnt out until it hits you.
Yeah.
Like it really does hit you.
Yeah.
Weirdly, the pandemic was a bit of a low. We were doing the Jamie film, and we got this big Disney, this big thing, and nobody saw it coming. And there was people have had it much, but we couldn't finish the film. It took us another year to finish the film.
Yeah.
And, you're sort of working from home trying to finish this film that's not going to go at the cinema anymore because the cinemas aren't open. That was a bit of a gut, because it was proper. I saw that film play just end of February before the pandemic hit in March.
Right.
And lockdown, I was in America with test audience, and it was absolutely smashing it
in the big screen.
in San Diego and in Pasadena and LA, and thinking, crikey, this could be massive.
Yeah.
So that was a bit hard.
Yeah.
If I'm honest.
But that film was nominated for BAFTA.
Oh yeah. No, I mean look, you just take, but they're sort of, there are some, and it's. You do get lows when you worked on something tirelessly and it's brilliant and it gets turned down. Especially in telly, it's like when somebody new comes into a role or the head of somebody changes and suddenly they want to bring their own slate in and
and it's all subjective as well.
It's all subjective, and something's better, and you've worked on something you've not been paid.
Yeah.
The writers put everything in, and it's brilliant, and the script's brilliant, and it's better than most things on telly, but it doesn't get made.
Yeah.
I still find that really difficult, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I'm quite resilient, but sometimes I just have to go, get home, take the dogs for a walk, have a word with myself.
Yeah.
That it's not you.
Yeah. Even at that level that you're at as well, it's like you're getting knockbacks. Like
knockbacks, you do get. Yeah, it's like, God, it's like, it is like it's like rejection. I'd say. I talk about Four Lions getting laughed out of rooms, but we got it made because in film you can just keep going because but in telly there's only a certain amount of places you can go.
Of course.
And if it's gone, if no one of those broadcasters or streamers want it, it's dead.
Yeah.
Well, it's not dead, but it's because things like Squid Games was 10 years later.
Yeah.
There are things that come back and get made, get turned down. White Lotus was famously turned down by every. There are things like that, but a lot of things don't get made that are brilliant. And I think I'd say probably you get, it's probably 9 times out of 10 you get knocked back.
Yeah.
And it's,
you've got to be resilient, haven't you, in this game?
Yeah.
In all parts of this game, actors getting knocked back all the time, but even like at your level, even like when I was acting, even like casting directors, I was baffled by the idea that casting directors pitch for jobs.
Yeah.
But now on the other side of it, as a director, you have casting directors that you sort of chat to and, they write for the job or not. Yeah. But like back then when I was acting, I was like, the casting directors, you didn't even think of things like that. Do you know what I mean?
No.
But yeah. So finally, mate, what's coming up? Where's Warp? What's happening? What's next?
So it's exciting. So like I say, the pandemic was hard. Jamie took a lot longer. You're not in production. You only make money as a production company when you're producing.
Yeah.
So if you take not making stuff. So I invested a lot in development. We invested in development. I'm really excited now. We just met our new creative officer, Emily, creative officer, Emily, who lives in Manchester, and our new head of development, Siobhan.
Yeah.
So at the back end of last year, we realised I've always worked hand to mouth.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hits, you realise it's and also, and this is daft, but I'm in my 50s, I'm early 50s now.
Never.
Yeah, I know. And you realise you're not invincible, and there is going to come a time, and it's all about relationships and personality. So we decided to go out to investors.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we got the Channel 4 Indie Growth Fund invested in us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a soft touch investment, but it means that I can bring some really cool people, expand the development team.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in the behind the scenes, as you know, doing a couple of things with yourself.
Yeah.
We've got working some amazing talent.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of shows with you with BBC and some of the streamers and a film. And
Yeah.
so it's been great actually to not produce for a while and really look at the business, get some brilliant people in.
Yeah.
Got 4 new development people, really diverse mix, with different tastes, different ages, different backgrounds, and the slate's really looking good.
Yeah.
It's probably the most eclectic and exciting and ambitious that it's ever been.
Yeah. I mean, that's saying something coming from.
Yeah, no,
what
it
you've
seriously is. It seriously is. It's like TV, a lot of TV in there.
Yeah.
Not international, but still, we tried to boil it down. That what's a walk film mean?
Yeah.
And it's ambitious. It's got authenticity through its roots.
Yeah.
But it's witty, and it's got the big thing is heart.
Yeah.
So whether it's a tough film, like some of This Is England's, it can make you laugh, but it also has got a huge heart and it's honest. So they've all got that warped DNA.
Yeah.
But sci-fi, we've got some like not just that sort of. Not all, like not what you might identify for the first 10 years, but the coming up is like, different voices.
Yeah.
In terms of writers and directors that we're working with, a different scale. And what's great, having Emily's only been with us 3 weeks, and already it's like really Siobhan's been with us 6 months and doing some great stuff, some amazing stuff behind the scenes. And I've got that solid back room with so people have been with us from for years.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, for the weirdly, I feel now that it's not there's enough people that I can swan off, wear a cravat, get a big daft chair,
Go and play golf.
I can play golf. I wish no. I mean, it's I do weirdly. It's weirdly. I think coming out of last weird 3 years that we've all had.
Yeah.
I'd say I was low, 20, thinking, do I want to do this anymore? It's going to be a struggle. Do I want to be? Why don't I just go and produce? And I was. But by getting cool new people in who are excited and working with new talent or established talent that I've not worked with before, I kind of feel like I got my mojo back in the last 6 months.
That's amazing, man.
So I'm fingers crossed there'll be some things. I've got this brilliant. We're actually, unfortunately, as you know, in telly you can't say too much until they're kind of all everything's signed and on the dotted line.
Yeah.
But we've got some new talent stuff for the Beeb that's coming up. We've got an amazing show that's just stunning, really original. That we're doing with the BBC soon. We've got things in development with Sky. We've got things in with the streamers.
Yeah.
We've got 4-parters, 6-parters.
Yeah.
Working with Australian directors and So I think it's
amazing.
Like buses, they're all going to be shot. Well, they're all likely going to start shooting at the start of next year.
Oh my God! How many Mark Herberts can you clone?
No, I've got. That's the great thing. Peter and
good
producers and Emily. It's not just me and Peter. It's not me. It was always me for the first 10 years. It was me and Peter and Robin. And now I've got a team of people that can just do. I trust 100%.
Yeah, and I've met a lot of them as well. They're just like yourself, normal people, just really just and that's the thing about this industry is you sort of have a preconceived idea about what the people at the top are, like yourself. But people like you, it's not I suppose it's not the norm from back in the day, but now there's it's just normal people.
Oh yeah,
and the way that you've come up the in the ranks is just
it is, and it's testament to the people that if you look at the Oscars and the BAFTAs, it's testament to people now that are in those positions of power.
Yeah,
because I was one of the few people that went to state school.
Yeah,
when one worked in a chemist and she was hard working. My dad, worked in the Ash and Nephew Offie, proper hard working. Family. I grew up but in a mining town and went to sort of comp.
Yeah.
And we back then, like I said, I had to put I thought about changing my name to Mark with a C, and I'm not even joking. And I worried about my accent sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting now that there's still barriers there. Don't get me wrong. It's still sort of privilege does help some way, but there are more and more people investing in voices that have not from privilege, and I think it's with diverse voices at the top, and long may it continue. We just need more of us out there, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, mate, it's been an absolute honour to talk to you, mate. Honestly.
Thank you.
It's been brilliant.
Really good. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
It was great. Good catching up and
yeah. Nice one,
mate. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Mark with a C. Mark Herbert with a C.
Lovely.